about that performing, copying, faxing, filing, other administrative? I was thinking under 30, general administrative support. Wouldn't that be fine too?
That's not
billing.
It's not
No,
really
30.
the conversation at the point right now, but I think this position is actually funded from water and sewer because that's predominantly the position. Although the question I had was just whether the reporting to part needed to stay the same or could be changed without creating an adverse issue later on. I mean, we all employees here technically work for the fire or for the general manager. So, you know, by default, we're all employees of the general manager. I'm just worried that if you get a person in here that they're confused and start raising problems because it says two different things.
I don't see there's any confusion. They report to the general manager, they get supervised by the board clerk account.
Maybe we add another line in there?
Well, I can give an example.
Supervised by, or, I mean, simple?
It states it clearly in the detailed duties under the supervision of the board clerk account clerk manager. So we're already indicating where the work responsibilities come from. But again, I think the person should report to the general manager.
Do we need to change all the rest of the job descriptions? Because, you know,
Hold on.
we have a set of them.
Mr. Dobbs, under the utility job descriptions that we've developed, there's a utility operator lead, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes.
Does the utility operator report to you or the lead?
All the operators report to me.
But I feel like that's kind of similar to the internal admin at that point, because, I mean, we could set it up so the utility operators could report to the lead, and the lead reports to you as well. It just feels like that's kind of a similar situation. But what would be the, you know, that's why I see and feel.
Well, and again, this is just my impression. It just seems a little bit like, and this doesn't happen here, but it's happened in other places that I've worked where you have a supervisor that gets circumvented by their supervisor. And I don't want that, I don't want there to be that conflict.
Sure.
If we have an account clerk that, you know, or any position that doesn't want to do what their supervisor says, so they go around and then say, okay, well, your boss says I don't have to do that.
Well, we don't have a chain of 20 people, you know, where 17 of them are chiefs. So because mom said no, I'm going to go to dad. That's not happening there. There's 7 people. So we're talking about an umbrella that's led by our interim general manager. And again, the person that is, Dr. Cowan's pointed out, you don't have the sub-lead reporting to the mid-leads, and then that guy reporting to you. It's all under your umbrella. So I don't understand how that's not seen the same way, because ultimately this person works underneath the interim general manager, but gets supervised for their daily activities by the account clerk. It's ultimately the same. Anybody else want to weigh in?
Would it also be prudent to actually review our organization responsibility chart?
I mean, we could make an org chart if we need to make an org chart at some point.
Well, we have one on file, it's just really old.
Well, it's not that old, it's last year.
Oh, what?
Yeah, we had to revise it.
Sorry, I thought it was a barrel.
Okay, I mean, I just wanted to bring it up, and if you guys are satisfied, then I'm satisfied. So, obviously, this person doesn't work for me, so it's.
Anybody else?
It also means technically that they report to the general manager, that person's does something really egregious, then we're supposed to hold the general manager accountable.
Well, no matter who does something really egregious, if it doesn't get taken care of, then
We should be one of the
the only person that you guys can come down on is the general manager.
Right. I also had a very oddball thought, and please tell me if the thought is completely outrageous. Because I was looking at the existing agencies in our community, and I know that I looked at the finances of our cemetery district, which apparently has been running negative balances in the near past couple of years. Would it be wise or maybe opportunist for us to maybe take their existing office worker and have them work for us in a combined for shared employee position? Or would that create too many complexities? Because they have someone that's already trained in handling billing, customer relations, or anything else.
Absolutely up to you guys.
I don't want to throw a bunch of like crazy things out there, but I was just thinking.
I think we probably have a problem if we just brought them on. If they wanted to apply for this position, I would imagine that they would be considered.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to share
That's
administrative responsibilities or their benefits or any of
Right.
those type of things with another entity. It'd be completely separate, like Kelly said, if they wanted to apply for the position and work at both spots, I don't know how that works out for them, but,
Yeah, I don't know.
personally, I don't see that.
I just threw it out there.
Are they being paid currently?
Yes, and actually, I think they get a pay check that's actually less than we're offering for our positions.
Well, you can mention it, Tom, and they could apply.
I don't even have
So in this process, to be fair, it doesn't target any individuals.
No,
Anyone's able to
no,
submit an application and apply for it, and they'll be interviewed fairly based on the demographics of our community. And
no, I'm not trying to be out of line.
so I know,
But
I don't want to say anything that would insinuate that we would lean towards an individual
No.
before any type of process was placed in the community for anyone to apply.
I was just looking at the fact that if they're still running negative balances, that if we share employees, that might benefit the community. I didn't know. I was just thinking, I guess I was overthinking, because I know that Templeton at one point did something like that to their cemetery district.
This is off.
It's going off topic. I didn't want to get off the topic.
Is that your girlfriend? That you're trying to get hired?
Are you looking to apply? I think you guys are front desk. No.
Hey, you made two hiring recommendations tonight.
I
You don't do the hiring here.
I'll meet him outside later.
I just,
You pulled us in the weeds, so I'm going to stand in the weeds. I have a question.
yes,
How does the cemetery district derive their revenue?
property taxes.
Okay. So they're funded by property
Yes.
taxes, but they're not managing their funds to a point where they're staying solvent.
That was according to the last NSR reports that I read. And I don't know anyone over there.
Okay.
And I can just spell it.
They can do clarification.
They're not doing a good job over there.
I know.
All right.
That was all.
Do we have any other public comments on this item?
Yeah. I got one on this, chain of command where Kelly wants to be the patron of everybody. Everything should go directly to him. And if you have employees, I don't care if it's one of the girls in the office or if he hires someone. I mean, if there's a huge problem, a labor problem, between one of your laborers and him, they should have a right to go directly to Rob, you know. And then they'll be evaluated, the problem and everything. I've seen guys like this before, you know. They want to be in control. And we know he don't know how to spend money. So,
To be fair to our staff members.
yeah. But anyway, that's what I'm getting at. You do have a chain command, like he can supervise, you know, the workers and stuff. But sometimes out in the field, there's problems, may not be his fault, but it may also not be one of the laborers. So they should be able to, you know, say, hey Kelly, you start giving me more shit, I'm gonna go see Rob. You know, and we'll get it straightened around.
Yeah, they've got that ability now.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
but anyway, I think everything should go through Rob, you know, especially the spending and getting these bids and so on. Because Kelly, I'm telling you right to your face, man.
Hey, we're stepping away from the topic here.
All right,
I
okay,
appreciate your
All
comment,
right.
but
okay. But anyway, that's what we need to do. You know, because we can't have one guy in charge of of all the laborers when we have a really good manager over there. And he knows the risk we take.
Agreed. And also our purchasing policies clearly delineate who is responsible for making purchases and everything else. We've been over that repeatedly.
Yes. All right. Yes, so, any other board comment on this item?
That's all going to be going on.
Once we resolve the application issue with the box inquiring, because our application currently requests information about their history, like criminal history. It's not
Review, yeah.
appropriate for that to go out, so we're making that adjustment. Legal's looking over it to make sure all the questions are now in compliance with current law, since they changed. We're looking probably right after the first of the month. It'll probably be a 2-week window to accept applications, then they'll be screened, we'll do interviews. I would imagine with the holidays and everything coming in, probably the first of the year will be the time that hopefully we can send out a job offer.
Oh, okay.
Don't hold me to that calendar, but the holidays, you know, it's
Yeah.
gonna
I'm doing both, so yeah.
Clarification on salary. Depends on experience and all that. I thought at one point we offered an employee who passed a language test.
We did.
And does that expire with the employee leaving, or does that stay with the position?
No, that's part
It's
of
in
the,
the personnel policy.
yeah.
I can't remember.
And it's an MOU,
It would be applicable
Hmm,
if someone else were bilingual.
okay.
and
They
they'll have to
took
go
the
out
test.
and take a test. Right.
And we have a salary schedule already in place for the position.
Right.
It would start at the beginning.
Not asking to change that, that's a problem here.
No problems, please.
I know, I agree.
I've been here too long, I've seen that.
Any other board comment on this item? I would motion to approve resolution 2020-42 with revised town clerk 1 job description and authorize staff to advertise and hire for this position.
May I suggest, I don't know, is it already, if it has to be, it's a policy now that they should be credit check? Instead of, currently our policy is May, maybe check. For the position.
May gives us the opportunity to do so, if we so choose.
Right.
You have to be real touchy, and that's why I'm having to look at that application.
Yeah, I think that part is part of this.
That's part of the application.
Yeah, it's not part of.
I didn't know. Thank you.
Did I get a second somewhere?
I'll second it.
Okay. I already had your name down. Director Palafox,
Yes.
Director Gregory,
Yes.
Director Calvin,
Yes.
President Sangster,
Yes.
passes 4-0 with 1 vacancy.
All right, we'll move on to item number 4, review and approve the release of an RFP for the purchase and installation of new fuel tanks at the Machado wastewater treatment facility.
So this is a piece of the gigantic wastewater treatment plant puzzle. And what I'd like to do is release an RFP to get firm pricing for replacement fuel tanks for diesel and gasoline. We don't currently hold gasoline, only diesel. We currently have a 400-gallon diesel tank, which is proving to be increasingly too small to support our current operations, with the increased operation of the fire department and with the increased operations of the water and wastewater departments. The purpose of this fuel is so that we can be self-sufficient in case of any sort of prolonged emergency, fuel outages, power outages, whatever. This is initially part of the wastewater treatment plant. This is one of the pieces that we can do in advance of the treatment plant at a fairly minimal cost. The estimate, this ballpark estimate that I had previously was about $45,000 for the entire system installed. However, that was, it's a little outdated now, it was from several different places we put together, so. What we'd like to do is put in 2,000 gallon fuel tanks, one for diesel, one for gasoline. With the card lock system, right now we have essentially the honor system of writing things down. With the card lock system, we'd be able to track more closely to like use of a credit card. So each vehicle would have a credit card that would be for that particular purpose and provide better tracking by vehicle and can be charged accordingly to whichever department owns that vehicle. So, like I said, at this point, we'd like to send out an RFP. It doesn't obligate us to anything other than getting prices, and then that would be brought back to the board for further consideration.
How old is the existing tank?
It was put in probably in 2006. It's still in good shape, and it does have resale value, so we could surplus it and recoup some of our costs. I think initially the tank was around $11,000.
Okay. And how is this being funded?
This would be funded through capital reserve from water and sewer, potentially from the fire department if they were interested in buying into it. They do use the fuel, but it could be as simple as we just charge them for the fuel, which we do.
Okay. And the intent would be to install these in a location that would not be disturbed during construction of the plant?
So, as you enter the plant, there's a three-sided equipment shelter there. The intent is for that to remain. They would be installed in that cover to protect them from the elements. And they're, like I said, the intent is for that to remain where it is and be reused. So, if they were installed today, they would be there through the end of the expansion, and most likely through the end of the expansion after that expansion.
Okay. Do we have any public comment on this item? Yes. No. How about board comment?
You said that they're 2,000 gallon tanks or
So it'd be 1,000 gallons.
1,000? So are they, is that buried?
They would be above ground tanks.
They're above ground, okay. So, I didn't realize they're so expensive.
Well, 2 tanks, the tanks are actually not super expensive. The card lock system is about as expensive as one of the tanks.
Okay.
Because of construction requirements, the gasoline tank is like $5,000 more than the diesel tank, which is surprising because diesel seeps out of everything. But at any rate, the gasoline tank is more expensive than the diesel tank, but the card lock system is about $10,000 expensive.
Okay.
So hopefully combined, we can get a better combined rate. Like I mentioned earlier, the card lock system was a price from a different vendor than the tanks. And so, but that's the intent, to provide more security for our fuel, provide more fuel storage in case we have some sort of prolonged incident. By providing gasoline here, that would also provide emergency fuel for the fire department pickups, our normal fuel for our utility pickups, and all the sundry gas-powered equipment we have.
These would be above ground tanks.
It would be above ground.
I'm not familiar with where you have your tank now. Is there a bunker or something like that?
So right now there's, it's a 400 gallon tank. If you go in, like if you pull up to our treatment plant, it's kind of front and center.
Okay.
It just has bollards around it.
Oh, okay.
Once that tank is removed, those bollards will obviously be removed. Additional bollards would be required along the face of the building that's there to prevent somebody from driving through the building. However, it wouldn't impact the area that we're planning on putting.
And I'm assuming that these tanks are raised gravity?
Well, the fuel would be pumped from the tanks.
Right, but I mean, is it like the old-fashioned tanks where they're up on the?
They would be at ground level,
Okay,
and then they would have sunset cover and things.
oh,
So it's not like the old ranch type
ranch style, yeah, I'm just.
where they were up high and it was gravity through just hours.
Yes, that's what I'm familiar with, yeah.
Mr. Dodds, was this covered in any of our environmental work, our spill plan?
It's covered, it's part of the treatment plan itself, so it is covered under the environmental work that's being done. We already have a diesel tank there. Already spoken with an air pollution and environmental health, and the additional requirements are fairly minimal to add additional above ground tanks.
Because with it being so close to the river, I didn't know if any other state agencies were going to complain.
Environmental health would be the one that poo-poo it. There's a additional EPA. It's not permitting. It's basically an acknowledgement of what we're doing and the volume that we're holding. The cutoff, as I was told, is 1,300 gallons. So because we're over that, we have to do this additional reporting to the EPA. However, environmental health is the one that is doing the inspections and doing the monitoring.
So any additional difference or change to any insurance requirements? Just when you thinking of a potential for a much larger spill should something happen?
Not that I'm aware of.
Have we, is there buy-in and support from the fire group and general manager group?
I think when we get the final numbers and find out what the final product is and how it's gonna be done, there's obviously we can discuss. As Kelly said, right now, our system, we essentially would be paying them for the fuel, but that wouldn't have us contributing to any of the structure, purchasing, and development, but we haven't had that discussion in length. He proposed a percentage to us, but that was without all the full details. So I'd say we definitely can talk about it.
Okay.
I would think there's a trend to go more towards all diesel equipment rather than gas and diesel equipment, so some of the gas vehicles might be phased away. We do have 3 utility command vehicles that are gas powered, everything else is diesel. And Rob and I spoke, future vehicles to be strictly diesel vehicles to avoid the mixed fuel issue, so there might not be that big of a need for that large of a unleaded pump gas kind of storage. But I don't know what the utility department is looking at doing. I know they have a couple gas powered vehicles and mostly everything else is diesel as far as equipment goes.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question. How much gas will you guys be using? Because a smaller tank for gas would be, like, you can't use this 400 gallon tank for the gas?
So the diesel fuel tank wouldn't be converted to gas. We'd have to replace it. We can look at a smaller tank if the fire department is not interested in using the gasoline. If they're going to phase it out in a time frame that's reasonable, then we could reduce the size of the gasoline tank. There is no interest to replace gasoline powered trucks with diesel trucks on the utility side. The starting and stopping would wear out diesel trucks prematurely for our needs, which is obviously not the same as the fire department use. We have a considerable amount of gasoline powered small equipment that in the event that we could not go get gasoline at a store would be detrimental to the district on multiple levels. However, that's another discussion I can have with the fire department again, is if they're not interested in using it, then we can reduce the overall size of the gasoline tank. Regardless of whether the fire department wants to be part of the diesel fuel tank, we're using enough diesel now, and we would be using more diesel in the future with the new plant, that the diesel would not go bad sitting there.
Will the trucks, will they be using the diesel?
currently fuel at the sewer plant on for most of our fuel.
And a thousand gallon tank would be enough?
Yeah.
Like if you got a bigger diesel one and smaller gasoline, would that even work, or 1,000 would be better?
Based on our fuel usage and what Kelly cited, I think the appropriate sizes are, that he quoted, depending on the gasoline side, whether it could be smaller, would be depending on the equipment and how much of it's being used. Currently, our gasoline vehicles get gas. I always fill up at the truck stop, it's been the same place, but that doesn't mean we'll always do that. One point that Kelly does bring up, in the event of an earthquake or something where we had limited access, we would have our fuel storage. So it's something definitely we should talk about.
Will these fuel tanks be mounted on seismic bases?
So they're essentially cylindrical tanks that are, they're not on seismic pads. They have two stands that they're on, and they're rated for seismic activity, but they're not on any sort of isolator.
Okay. How much, what is our current fuel usage and gasoline usage on a monthly basis?
So right now, we fill that tank on average every month and a half to 2 months. So that's 300 to 400 gallons every month and a half to 2 months for diesel. Right now we're filling the truck, or the utility truck, that's gasoline, about once a week. So that's 30 gallons a week. 20 gallons a month. Basically what I figured is we would be able to supply ourselves for 2 to 3 months if we were using everything at its maximum. Just looking at the fire department fuel report for their gasoline, obviously this last month was considerably less. But if you look at July, they were using about 38 gallons in July for 2 of the trucks,
From all in town.
probably.
It actually goes fast, dude. It's right up.
Except commute.
I was thinking 4th of July.
So in previous months from that, they used anywhere from 30 to, I'm not sure where they went in February, but they used almost 90 gallons. But so the intent is to have enough fuel for a minimum 2 to 3 months to be self-sufficient for that long.
Since we're looking at this, there's also the other issue of the state of California's regulations and governor's mandates, which are talking about the transition away from gasoline vehicles and the phase out, including a 2024 mandate for truck manufacturers to start transitioning to electric vehicles. Do we need to also consider an electric charger? Because I mean, with the state mandate currently is, we're looking at possibly having electric vehicles within the next 10 years.
So this mandate is for them to start building and converting to electric. It doesn't mean that we're going to get rid of all our trucks.
The mandate will be that they won't be able to sell new
Right.
gasoline vehicles, but anything that's existing can still operate.
So as part of the plant design, there will most likely be 1 or 2 electric vehicle charging stations, just as a general requirement. I'm not opposed to electric vehicles at all, and this isn't really that discussion, but the reality is that, like, for utility vehicles, for smaller ones, it's probably going to be fine the first few years. Having been with the fire department, it's really hard to go across the state on an electric vehicle and have to charge it for several hours, several times when you're going from one end to the other.
The old battery.
So there will, at least while we're all here, there's going to be some electric, maybe in the future, but it's going to be predominantly gasoline and diesel. I'm in favor of clean energies, and if we get smaller vehicles that can be electric, then we can start looking that direction. But it's not something that is ready for us to just pull the trigger and say, oh, we're gonna get rid of all the gas people.
I hope we wouldn't be doing that, we just spent money on those vehicles.
Yeah, well, we have a lot of money invested in vehicles, and to just switch gears is,
You couldn't afford electric.
That's-
Burlingame purchased an electric fire truck this year and they paid over $1 million.
Oh, was it Berlin?
Burlingame.
That's how long.
Harold Oldemoff is his name, the chief there, purchased an electric fire truck for over $1 million. But Burlingame has money, so.
Yeah, those people, they all got money.
Comes with a real long extension cord.
I don't think that was going on campaign fires.
It's got a little whirly wheel on the top that generates wind power, and it's got solar panels, right? Well, you could do hydroelectric power, you're pumping water, so it's sort of like regenerative braking, but using the water. Anyway, this is taking a turn. Does anybody, are there any more board comments or questions? Yes.
Is there any break at the quantity you get for the price of fuel? Like, would you get a better price on fuel if you had bigger tanks or smaller tanks?
as with most things, if you're buying more, you get a slight discount, but fuel is one of those things where it's 99% tax.
Yeah,
So you get to pay the tax one way or the other.
all right, I just thought, before the summer prices come in or whatever, but
75 cents
Use
just
the
coming down the
summer
line.
formula.
just the theory.
Well, and that is a reality, that if we're able to buy fuel, just like when you buy propane, if you're able to get it off the peak, then it's a little bit better. Having more storage means that we can be a little bit pickier when we get it. We just have some sort of a minimum threshold that we'll be monitoring most of the time. But, just as with our quarry, we get a discount for getting more at a time. And you're paying trucking, so if you're paying trucking every month, that's, that adds up. But, at this time, we're just asking to put it out there and see what we get, and we can modify it to also seek pricing for a 500-gallon gasoline tank, and we can see what the difference is.
Any other comment or questions? All right. You have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the RFC.
Second.
Who did I get? Oh, Gregory?